And we're back with our roundtable of episode 2 in group A of GFC. So, Animated J, one more time, what is our topic for the roundtable today?
The topic is individualism as a Glover. What makes a Glover shine from the rest? So again, thinking of it as we have the technical aspect and the creative aspect. So you can look at both of these aspects and break it down. What is it about a Glover that makes them shine?
Can I just jump in here? Because I
Go.
You
I
look
actually-
like you want to jump in, so go
I
ahead
mean,
and just
y'all-
dive
you
in
guys
first,
keep
bro.
you
Let
guys
us know if
keep
the water's warm.
feeding me topics that I've already written about. So it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, all right. So,
Plug
anyways,
your book. Just kidding.
I mean,
We already plugged the book.
magically there will be a link on the screen.
Yeah. It's in your title card. There's your URL that has the book. and
Anyways,
everything, so.
And before we continue, just again making a reference to the Glovers we just saw, the two that really stuck out in my mind was Genghis Wrath and
Genghis Wrath and Ducky.
Genghis Wrath and Duck. And again, what is it that makes these individuals shine? You know, I know someone made a reference to Puppet. So
Right.
go for it.
I'm gonna take a step back before we talk about them specifically, but I want to talk about what makes a unique performance, and even if this is stepping back further from even gloving in general, because any dance art, any martial art, any
Movement art.
any movement art, any literally anything you do creatively does not hinge on the foundations and fundamentals of that art alone. What I mean to say there is the only way to stay innovative and stay creative and actually become an individual inside of an art space is not just to absorb all of the foundations of that art space. That's a step. That's a foundational first step. But the next step is saying, okay, what are things that inspire me? And this is something that Animated J, you could speak to this so very much in any of your classes, and I'm sure this is exactly what you do. But you look at every aspect of life and think, what effect does that have on me? What effect? How do I emulate that? And the perfect example of this is how tutting became a dance style in the first place. Because if you look back to animated Bugs Bunny cartoons, you will find the first instance of tutting in popular culture. And what Bugs Bunny is doing is literally just pretending to be wall paintings with angles, right? It's in order to hide from the dog. And that's where these dancers were like, well, that looks like a dance. Let's do that. And that aspect, and then all of a sudden that becomes a dance culture in and of itself. And tutting becomes, a foundational style. But it's up to individuals. It's up to us to take the things that would inspire us in order to move that into the next step.
Okay. Definitely taking what, like you just said, tutting, and then pushing it further with it, going deeper with it, and also adding who you are to it. So
Right,
it's
and
like
tutting isn't necessarily the catch-all here. I mean, of course, it's any art foundation. It's learning the foundations of the art, learning the foundations of liquid, learning the foundations of tutting, learning the foundations of clusters, whatever it may be, and then saying, okay, what's something that inspires me? And a good example of this could be with clusters, like something that is just lives in my brain rent-free for no reason whatsoever from popular culture is The Price is Right. You ever watch The Price is Right?
Yeah.
Price is Right. One of the games is called Plinko. Do you know what Plinko is?
I'm not sure.
Plinko is where you would drop the ball or the disc, and it would bounce off of these Plinkos, off of these things, and it would go down, and you'd have to get it into the right slot in order to win the money.
Right.
I think
Well,
those
for
are called
me,
pachinko machines.
Plink. I remember it as Plink. I don't know why I thought it was Plinko.
I think it's like
Pachinko,
it's like a pinball machine. I'm probably saying
right.
it wrong.
Anyways, the point is the thing falls. It goes binka bink plinka plinko plinka plinka plinko. So I was doing clusters one day with the pyramid cluster, which is 4, 3, 2, 1 on either side. And I
Mhm.
thought to myself, if I can move down the space, that's like a plinko, right? Because if it goes plinko, 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 plinko. It falls down as it's, and this is with this is with fingers that I'm trying to emulate a game show, right?
Mhm.
So this has nothing to do with gloving whatsoever in my mind, but it does. It does, because why? Because I'm
Mm.
an individual. That's my
Totally.
experience. That's my experience coming to bear on the art form.
Totally. And I know, like, in my classes, when I'm with someone, we talk about what is it about you? What makes you you? Outside of gloving, outside of, of this movement, what are you into? What are the things you are interested in? Take those things, now bring it into your art. Now you're showing people who you are. And that to me is that individualness, taking other
Mm,
parts of your reality and bringing it into your dance.
mm,
But Trump, I want to hear a bit. What do you feel on what makes a Glover stand out from your personal experience?
Yeah, from my personal experience, like people's individualism and their personality really shows through their light shows. I can take Josh for example. Josh comes off as like a really intelligent person right off the bat, and you can see that in just
Not
like the
true.
little
I'm just
hear
kidding.
me out,
I'm
hear me out.
kidding.
So,
Hear
but
me
you
out,
can
he
you can
says.
you can see the little small movements in his shows. You can see his background in doing magic and things. Um, and he's very like spirited, I guess. He's very animated in what he does. He's not like a quiet, soft-spoken person. Whereas I've met quiet, soft-spoken people that are incredibly complex and they just keep it to themselves. And it's crazy, like, oh wow, that's all going on in their head. But normally, like, they sit in the corner and pet the cat. Like, but they have all this going on in their head. Or you'll meet the like really loud person. They just like to be the center of attention and they're in your face with their light show, throwing the biggest tuts that they can. And and it's never a negative thing, but it really does, in my opinion, reflect a person's personality when you get a light show from them and makes it that much more intimate of an experience than it really is. And I love seeing that because you can tell almost what a person's like to some degree from a light show that they give you. And I love that.
Hmm.
I love it.
You can
It's
certainly tell a
so
lot
fun.
about someone's mentality, someone's mentality from what they do with their lights, or what they do with their dance, or what they
Or
do with their
just
art form.
yeah, just the moves
Absolutely.
that they choose even. I
Hmm.
like it. I love to analyze it.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a lot of this, the individual showing their personality. Definitely, it's part of the performance. Is this something that you guys are judging an individual's individuality? Does that play a role on the scorecard?
It
No.
can, and it can't. Oh,
No.
oh.
Let's hear
See,
it.
it
No
can.
and maybe.
It
We have
can though.
debate. We have
It
debate.
can though, and
Oh,
I'll
grab
give
the
you an
popcorn.
example.
Let's go.
I'll give you an example. The first episode we watched, the very first Glover we watched, his name was Algorithm,
Mhm.
and his individuality in his name shined through instantly with how he performed a dexterity trick at the beginning, because it followed an algorithm and it ended up in the right place, even though it looked random. It looked like it should have been random, but it also looked like it was following a pattern, and it did. It followed that pattern. So can an like, and then there's I'm gonna circle it back to me, because you used me as an example before. I'm gonna circle it back to me. You said that it can look like I'm doing my magic, of the history of my of magic that I had comes through in my light shows. So in that
And your
sense,
name is Jess, so
and in that sense, the entertainment value, the comedy value,
yes.
in that sense, absolutely someone's individuality is going to come to bear on the scorecard. Now,
Okay.
is there a place? Is there a individuality score out of 5? No, there's not. But that's not the question.
Okay. Well,
I
yeah.
remember.
No, I sorry, go ahead, Teddy.
I was gonna say I remember my very first Jest light show at IGC 2014. Um, and I knew exactly. I was like, oh, okay, this guy is an entertainer.
Yeah.
For sure.
He
Because
puts
he did
on
the
the
hat
show.
thing. He did the hat thing. I remember that hat thing for sure. Like, the eye roll. There's the eye roll. To be fair, I have a trick. I have a hat trick, and it's right here.
Yeah,
This guy,
whatever
the over the head thing.
2013 whatever 2013 swag snapback stuff you guys got going on, it's lovely. But
Bro, the hat trick was a part of my repertoire. It was part of my full jest experience for the longest period of time.
oh my
I had
God.
this.
Until I actually learned how to do good
gloving
moves.
right
Then
here.
when
I
I
hear
learned how to
hat
do
tricks
moves,
and I
I
think
kinda-
of fat DC shoes with the big tongue and the checkered shoelaces.
Okay, why do I feel personally attacked? I had those fat DC shoes with the checkered shoelaces in fucking middle school. Don't at me, bro. All right.
So the reason why I say no when it comes to that individuality playing a part in the scorecard is, yes, I completely agree with you, Josh. That's something that I could see you looking at, especially for your side of the scorecard. But for me, it's always been more of a technicality type deal. I love the showmanship, musicality, love it. But when I'm judging a scorecard, I try and keep it very like textbook. Like, is this on the scorecard? No, doesn't matter. I don't care if your name is digits and that's all you do. You're not getting more points. That's just, I just look at it from a very like black and white standpoint. I do agree with you though. I see where you're coming from. That's just not the way that I think when I'm judging. You're also muted.
I was muted. Look at that. I was just trying to talk.
Wow. Wow.
I was just saying, from your scorecard, it makes sense to not
Yeah.
take any of that in. But that's where I'm. That's again. That's my side of the
Yeah.
scorecard. I
That's
guess.
why we split the scorecard up, and why we pair things accordingly. Shout
Yeah,
out to you got moves for being on top of it. Those guys must be doing it right, huh?
So then individuality seems to be more on the side of showmanship, creative
Yes,
intention. That's where
yes,
it more
absolutely.
heavily plays a role. What would you say then Trump would be? Is there a version or a contrast of individuality that would fit into what you're looking at? I know you said textbook. So would textbook be like the flip side of the coin to individuality?
yes and no. I mean, there's things that everybody does. You can take the finger roll, for example. I'm not going to look at someone's finger roll and be like, wow, they're a really interesting person. It's a finger roll, and I expect it to be done well because it's a staple move. The same goes for, your basic tuts, whatever. Your foundations are your foundations, and I think they should be more or less generally the same for everybody. But once you build upon those foundations and your flow really kind of comes to you and you become mature as a dancer or a movement artist or a glover, that's when your style begins to show and your personality shows through your style. It's not, something that is very apparent right off the bat, but you grow into it, and I think there's moves that are moves and they are meant to be done well, and then there's things that are unique to a person, and I think it's a beautiful dance and balance of the two things put together that make a really great light show.
That actually
Wow.
brings us back. That actually brings us back to talking about Genghis Wrath, at least.
It does.
Because he is a perfect example of giving us both moves that are meant to be done well and are done well, and then putting in the interesting parts of the story these aspects of new and intriguing techniques and abstract techniques that are done well enough that they're not wasted space, or they're not wasting movement or wasting time or filler moves, but they're also unique and interesting enough to the point where it's like, ooh, this is absolutely his individuality coming through into the light show to say, hey, this is the way I look at light show technique. This is the way that I look at giving a performance.
Yeah.
And
This is what interests me.
Yeah, right. Like there's a whole world of interesting here that you haven't even thought of because you're too busy following the trends and the meta. So that's what I like.
I do want to tie back into something that Trump mentioned here about the key is that while individualism is important, like it is so important that you understand what you're being an individual in first, and that is why foundations are important. Like
there's a phrase
the idea of it's
you have
just
to
my
learn the rules
style
before you break them. Yeah.
The idea of it's just my style is, I mean, and I'm not saying this to rag on anybody. Like, I feel bad. It's like you're handicapping yourself by saying that. And I see so many people like limiting themselves. Like, if you say it's just your style, like you're right, it is because you choose for it to be.
And
like,
that's where, and I've got literal folders full of memes bragging on people who talk about it's just my style, bro. Sloppy's not a style, okay? Sloppy isn't a style. But that's where this wasted movement phrase comes into play here, because I was talking about how do you judge something that you've never seen before? How do you critique something that is legitimately, genuinely unique, new, hasn't been done before? Well, you have to do it on aesthetic standards. Is what you have to do. Is you have to say, well, is there anything that jarred me out of my stupor, out of my hypnosis, so to speak? Was there anything that jarred me out of the performance? Is there anything that was
you're not just referring to him.
noticeably?
I'm sorry to
Go
cut
ahead.
you off.
No, go
You're
ahead.
not. You're not just referring to the lights being backwards, are you? Because that's definitely been
No,
done
no,
before.
definitely
Okay.
not. Definitely not.
Okay.
I'm talking about
More like
specifically
Yeah, that's okay for sure. Yeah, that definitely. It sounded, yeah.
Putting the lights backwards was definitely an artistic choice that
Mhm.
both showed uniqueness as well as attention to detail in history, because like you said, it's not been done. It's not been done before. It's been
But
done
it also hasn't
in
really
history.
been done in like a decade, which is really nice.
But
So,
it's also
yeah.
got that aspect to it, and then it's also got the fact that he used it intentionally so that he could fuck with the light and do his individual unique thing. And that's like, that shows not only individualism, it shows forethought, it shows planning, it shows intention, and it shows that he's doing something that he's practiced, that is set up to be a new concept that people could then work off of, even though nobody's seen it before, and we have to then judge it based on the aesthetic standards that we have before us. Like, again, wasted movement.
Josh,
We come back to wasted movement.
If I could add to that too, from my own standpoint, with me trying to be more black and white and textbook with things, the style or the choice of putting the lights the way he did, 0 points. You know, it is what it is, whether it looks good or bad. It's not going to affect the scorecard. But what he did with it, is what really gets the points or not. And agreeing with everything that you just said.
And that shows the dichotomy of how individualism can and can't affect the scorecard.
Exactly.
Yes, I like that.
I want to just again bringing it back to the individualism, and because we were just going off of the technical aspect. Know your foundation, get the foundation solid, then go wild, break the rules, and
know the rules before you break them. Absolutely.
Exactly. You got to figure out what's going on. You understand it. Now let's play with the lines and let's play with things. I guess relating that to in dance community, or at least what I've seen, is because I would say nowadays a lot of dancers are experimenting with mixing and matching with different styles like flexing and crump and juking. Like people are becoming more aware of these things, these styles, and then mixing and matching. However, there are, I think, some dancers where they're like, again, it's my style. This is how I want to do it. And they disregard the foundations. And I guess that's where you could see kind of just be cautious, just a little concerning of where are things going. Because if we're like, forget about the rules, or not the rules, but forget about the foundation, and let's just be creative, and that's great and all. But then I guess
there's a time and a place.
Correct.
As far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned, there's practice time for being creative and forgetting the rules, and there's practice time for learning the foundations, perfecting the foundations, and learning the rules that you can then break. I mean, it really just comes down to intention and understanding of what you're trying to do. Because if you're gonna sit down and say, forget the rules, I'm gonna be creative, I'm gonna do whatever I want, chances are you're gonna spin in circles and not get anywhere. However, if you sit down and learn the rules and then learn, and that's where the phrase comes from, if you sit down and learn the rules and learn why aesthetic standards are in place, then you can break the rules in ways that are creative because you understand the aesthetic principles in place. So I don't know.
Exactly. And again, if you're entering a contest, you will be judged.
You gotta
So-
learn the rules of the game.
You gotta learn the rules. But anyway, Teddy, I think that wraps up our discussion on individualism.
It does, yeah, and I think we lost Trump on that connection there, but that's okay. We were just about to send off for the night for the day. Don't forget to join us on Sunday where we close out the round and take a look at Pleasure, Kupo, Sidewinder, and Pretzel. And again, joining us the following 2 weeks for groups B and C as well. Thanks again so much. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you on Sunday.
Peace.
Just